She possessed a vocal architecture so terrifyingly perfect that it literally forced primetime television judges to physically storm the stage and halt a live national broadcast. She was universally hailed by industry veterans as the absolute, undeniable heir to the legendary thrones of Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey, specifically engineered to dominate the global Billboard charts for an entire generation. But almost immediately after securing one of the most fiercely contested reality television contracts in modern broadcast history, the music industry seemingly swallowed her whole. What happens when a network discovers a once-in-a-lifetime generational prodigy, only for the corporate record label to completely sabotage her career before it even begins? Today, our investigative team is breaking down the baffling professional disappearance of Jessica Sanchez. We are pulling back the curtain on the catastrophic mismanagement of her debut album, the toxic demographic biases hidden deep within reality television voting algorithms, and the grueling, unseen realities of attempting to survive as an independent artist after the massive corporate machine aggressively abandons you. Prepare to uncover the dark, untold reality of the music business, and exactly how the industry managed to derail the trajectory of the greatest vocal talent to ever emerge from the American Idol franchise. To truly understand the massive scale of this catastrophic industry failure, we must first analyze the unprecedented cultural phenomenon that was her initial television run. When a 16-year-old Jessica Sanchez stepped onto the stage during season 11 of American Idol, she fundamentally altered the standard expectations of a reality competition. She was not presenting herself as a nervous amateur seeking vocal coaching. She was delivering fully realized, stadium-level vocal masterclasses week after week. Her rendition of Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You" remains one of the most meticulously analyzed, technically flawless performances ever captured on live television. She possessed a terrifying level of breath control, pitch accuracy, and emotional resonance that seasoned professionals spend decades attempting to master. The media apparatus immediately launched a massive hype campaign, setting expectations so high that anything less than global superstardom would be considered a catastrophic failure. However, behind the glowing press releases and the standing ovations, a highly troubling demographic trend was quietly operating behind the scenes. Despite her undeniable, world-class superiority, the television voting block was heavily skewed toward a very specific archetype, setting the stage for one of the most shocking and controversial moments in the entire history of the broadcast. The internal mechanics of this deeply flawed voting system reached a highly volatile breaking point during the top 7 elimination round. In a moment that completely shattered the polished illusion of the competition, the television audience inexplicably failed to secure enough votes to keep her in the show. What followed was an act of sheer, unscripted desperation that highlighted just how vital she was to the credibility of the entire network. Judges Jennifer Lopez, Steven Tyler, and Randy Jackson physically interrupted the live broadcast, aggressively storming the stage before she could even finish her final song to deploy the coveted judges' save. It was an unprecedented television emergency, a frantic attempt to correct a massive demographic miscalculation by the viewing public. This dramatic rescue propelled her all the way to the grand finale, but the underlying issue remained entirely unresolved. The reality television format consistently favored the casual, acoustic aesthetic of the white guy with a guitar trope, a demographic reality that ultimately handed the victory to Philip Phillips. While taking the runner-up position is rarely a career death sentence, in this specific instance, it foreshadowed a massive disconnect between her undeniable, raw talent and the corporate industry's fundamental inability to properly market a teenage powerhouse vocalist to the modern American public. The immediate aftermath of the television finale initiated one of the most baffling and destructive periods of corporate mismanagement in recent musical history. Having secured a major recording contract with Interscope Records, The expectation was that the label would surround her with elite producers to craft sweeping, cinematic ballads that properly utilized her massive vocal artillery. Instead, the record label executives executed a complete, catastrophic creative pivot that entirely alienated her core fanbase. They aggressively attempted to rebrand the 17-year-old vocal prodigy into a generic, heavily auto-tuned electronic dance pop artist. Her lead single, a club track featuring Neo titled Tonight, completely stripped away the emotional resonance and raw vocal power that made her a global phenomenon in the first place. The production was remarkably chaotic, burying a generational voice beneath layers of cheap, disposable synthetic beats. Our industry analysts note that this is a classic, highly destructive corporate blunder. The label executives fundamentally misunderstood their own product, aggressively trying to force a classic powerhouse vocalist into the rapidly fleeting trend of early 2010s electronic dance music. The resulting debut album suffered from a severe identity crisis, completely failing to resonate with the millions of viewers who had passionately supported her on television, and effectively halting her mainstream momentum right as it should have been accelerating. Recognizing the catastrophic failure of the debut album, the corporate management team attempted to salvage her mainstream relevance by executing a sudden, highly irregular pivot into network television acting. In a desperate bid to maintain her visibility, she was abruptly cast in a recurring role on the massive musical comedy series Glee. While this provided a temporary injection of mainstream media attention and allowed her to showcase her vocal abilities in a controlled, scripted environment, it was fundamentally a strategic distraction from the devastating reality occurring behind closed doors at the record label. The television appearances served as a smokescreen, masking the fact that the recording executives had completely lost faith in their ability to market her as a solo recording artist. Shortly after her television arc concluded, the inevitable, highly guarded industry secret finally broke to the public. Interscope Records quietly and unceremoniously dropped her from their roster. The massive corporate machine that had eagerly capitalized on her reality television fame completely washed their hands of the situation, leaving a highly traumatized, exceptionally talented young artist stranded in the notoriously predatory wilderness of the independent music industry without any structural support. This brutal corporate abandonment initiated a grueling, heavily obscured chapter of her career that fundamentally tested her psychological endurance and artistic dedication. Forced to navigate the intensely competitive music business without the massive financial backing of a major label, she had to completely rebuild her entire professional infrastructure from the ground up. During this extensive period of mainstream American silence, the media narrative cruelly shifted, hastily labeling her as just another failed reality television statistic. However, the Untold reality was far more complex and strategically calculated. She aggressively pivoted her focus toward the international market, specifically cultivating a massive, intensely loyal fan base in the Philippines, where powerhouse vocalists are still deeply revered and commercially viable. She spent years relentlessly hustling outside the harsh glare of the American spotlight, independently funding her own studio sessions, releasing independent singles, and grinding through grueling international tour schedules. This phase of her career exposes the brutal, highly unforgiving economics of the modern streaming era. It requires a staggering level of mental fortitude to go from performing on the most watched television stage in America to fighting for independent digital streams, proving that her ultimate survival in this industry was not dictated by a record executive, but by her own unyielding, relentless hustle. As we analyze the current landscape of the modern entertainment industry, the trajectory of Jessica Sanchez stands as a powerful, permanent indictment of the corporate recording structure. In recent years, she has effectively weaponized the democratization of digital media, utilizing platforms like YouTube and TikTok to bypass the traditional gatekeepers entirely. Her recent viral vocal challenges and independent releases continue to routinely break the internet, effortlessly proving that her terrifying vocal architecture remains absolutely entirely intact and arguably more powerful than ever before. Her ongoing resurgence is a masterclass in modern digital survival, but it forces the viewing public to ask a highly uncomfortable question. How many other generational talents have been systematically shelved, mismanaged, and discarded by an industry obsessed with fleeting algorithmic trends rather than true, undeniable artistry? Jessica Sanchez did not fail the music industry. The music industry spectacularly and unforgivably failed Jessica Sanchez. She stands today not as a tragic cautionary tale, but as a fiercely independent vocal titan who survived the absolute worst of the corporate television machine, proudly reclaiming her identity and her voice on her own exact, uncompromised terms.